Hey everybody, it's Nigel Jenkins of Laughing Heart Music and LHM Records, and today my guest is Mary Beth Waldram. Mary Beth has been working in the music industry for the past 12 years in all kinds of roles as a booking agent, an artist manager, and most recently as the artistic director of the Newfoundland and Labrador Folk Festival. We had a chat about how to have your festival applications seriously considered and the kinds of assets you need to create in order to do so, managing expectations for yourself and for others in music, and how big changes can set you down the right path in life. I hope you enjoy our chat. I certainly did. And as always, thank you to the sponsors of this video series, Music NL, ACOA, and the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And thanks to today's t-shirt from Nowhere FM. All right, let's get to it. Hope you enjoy. Cool. So we are recording, and I'm going to try and look in the right direction with my new webcam. Oh, man. This could get weird. Okay, so Mary Beth, I've done a great job introducing you already. That's on the front end of this. So everybody knows what's up. So I want to jump right into like a real practical for the artists and industry professionals watching kind of thing. What can you tell me about best practices for an artist who is hoping to apply to a festival like NL Folk Fest for the first time? What can they do to get their application seriously considered, and what's going to give them the best shot at actually getting an offer at some point?
Honestly, it really comes down to looking at the questions, answering all of the questions. So obviously, if you don't have a SoundCloud, you can't include your SoundCloud link. Yeah. That's it. But if questions are asked, or it asks you to list achievements, like make sure you filled that section out. It's really, really important. Also, a live video. It's funny, as a manager, a new manager, I never thought a live video was a serious thing. It was like, I just sent the album. It sounds great. And, my artists at the time, this was years ago, weren't getting picked, and I couldn't figure out why. And every time I went to a conference, it was like live video, live video. And now that I work for a festival, live video, good quality live video. That's honestly, I look at live videos more than I look at an actual album, more than I'll listen, because I want to see what the crowd is like for your performance.
Right.
I want to see if it's different than the album, how it comes across, because some albums can be really great and then not come across the same live, or vice versa. Some albums can be like, okay, this is cool, but then you see the live show and it's just like blows your mind, and it's something different. So I think it's really, really important to include that, and I can't stress that enough. And also just keeping it clean and tidy and answering the questions.
Yeah, that could be hard sometimes to stick to the script and answer. But I think about a live video we made for Hillsburn, one of the artists I managed a couple years back, and it's like, I don't know how many views the video actually has. I think it's probably less than like 10,000 at this point.
Yeah.
But we've used that for so many different applications, for festivals, for showcases, for reaching out to venues cold, and we've gotten so much value out of it over the years. I think it's probably like the most valuable piece of content across the board that we've made for the band.
Absolutely. You can use it like booking tours, especially when you're trying to go into like a new market, like not even just for festivals. Like if you're trying to go over to Europe or go to the States or somewhere else, venues want to see what your live performance is like. They want to know if it'll even fit in your venue, so it's,
Do you still try or want to see like a real live show from an act before you book them for the fest, or can a live video be a good enough stand-in for that?
Basically it kind of depends. Like if I can, like I would obviously prefer that. But I can't be everywhere all the time, especially with acts, sending me content from overseas or in BC. Right. So it's, I like both, but if I can see you, like if you're coming to St. John's, shoot me a line and be like, hey, come see my show. I'm applying for Folk Fest or whatever festival, and I will definitely try and make it out as much as possible.
I imagine your schedule must be interesting when you're booking the festival, if you are going overseas for some talent, and if you're in BC for some talent. I've been in situations where like I've had an artist on tour in Germany and an artist on tour in Alberta, and it's like, you just don't sleep.
No, especially with the time difference. Like I had an artist who was over in England a couple of years ago, and I mean, it's not that huge of a time
Yeah.
difference. It is 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just trying to go to bed at like midnight at a sensible hour, and it was just like getting calls at 4 a.m. being like, "Hey, we're driving here. What's the deal?" And it's like,
do you this is personal, so feel free to answer this to any degree that you want, but like, do you leave your phone on at night at all times for artists? Like, are you available 24 hours?
oh my gosh, I almost don't want to say this on record, but I keep my phone on vibrate unless I know if I know someone's going overseas or going on tour. Like if an artist is going on tour for a week, I will leave my phone on, especially if I'm the primary contact / tour manager from a home base. I will absolutely keep my phone on. Normally as a go forward, no, but if I know that, okay, someone's on tour for the first time, they might need a little assistance, I'll keep my phone on at all times.
That's fair. I was like making myself available at all times, no matter what, very early on doing this.
Oh, I did too, but I think everyone makes that mistake. Because it's nice to have someone that you can call anytime. Of course. But you also have to take care of yourself, which I think is one of the hardest lessons to learn.
Yeah, well, to be sort of frank, I think I burnt out in the first probably 2 years of doing it, right? Because I was just like, I was trying to be everywhere with the bands I was working with, and I was trying to be available at all times, and I was answering emails from 6 a.m. until midnight and all that sort of stuff. It's tough to manage, especially when you're wearing a lot of different hats, like I know you have through sort of your career in the industry. How have you like found balance for yourself between the different roles or over the years?
It kind of came from a similar, being frank, from burning out. Actually, I was losing my hair. I was so stressed out in my early first 2 years, because when you're starting out, you're not getting paid that much either. So it was like trying to work a full-time job, not in the industry, so that I could work in the industry and intern and learn and go out and do all this stuff that I needed to do, or so they say. And I crashed hard. And it was kind of, and I think unfortunately that happens to a lot of people. And that's kind of where a lot of people learn, no, I actually need to say no. I need to sleep. I need to turn my phone off more often. So it was kind of through that, and I actually ended up taking 3 years kind of out of the industry after that, to kind of figure out, am I even meant to be in this industry, and learning that what I was doing wasn't healthy. And after those 3 years, it was much easier, and just learning to say no. And
At what point did the transition happen for you from other jobs to full-time music industry?
It's been off and on, and honesty. Actually, right now, I just took a full-time job managing a cafe, which comes with a lot of event coordination as well, which is great.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But more just thinking we are living in a COVID time. You don't know when, so having some nice steady income is great, but it's gone back and forth. I've never had a straight 3-year streak where I've done industry just full-time.
Right.
I've done a lot of bartending. I kind of like it like that. I feel like it gives me some space from the industry, so I can go at all of my different hats or jobs clearly. And I need to have something else than the industry, or else I just burn out really fast.
I mean, it's a thing I talk about with a lot of people, is I think there's a lot of benefits of having a job, like a day job or a straight job or whatever you refer to it, outside of the music business, for stability, for peace of mind, for having some sort of a disconnect from all of this, which can be insane constantly if you want it to be, or if you let it be. I mean, speaking of all your different hats too, I mean, I have a sense, but for people who are watching or listening, what are some of the different roles you have taken on over the years?
Over the years, I've been an artist manager. I still am to some degree. Who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of months with COVID, but we're chucking along. I manage a band called Ouroboros from St. John's. Who are absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I do a lot of tour bookings, which isn't necessarily known, and I have for quite some time. So not fully across Canada, but from St. John's to Ontario.
Okay.
I don't really advertise that. That's more, I guess, word of mouth that I put out for maybe buds or for bands that, you know, I'd like to work with, but not as much as an artist management sort of standpoint.
Right. It's sorry to interrupt, but I book too, and I definitely try not to advertise that I'm doing bookings. It's like, yeah, if I manage you, I'll book for you if I have to, and I can.
Yeah, I like that disconnect, and then it comes from like that whole disconnect. It's fine managing and booking, but sometimes I like having the two separated. I find it easier because like with tour booking, you can just be like, this is my cut, 15%. No,
right.
You know, it's a bit more cut and dry. I do a lot of grant writing, which I'm slowly moving away from now that the festivals are really picking up for me. I really love working for festivals. It's something throughout the 13 years I've been in the industry. It's always been a love of mine.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to move more towards doing festivals full time than anything else.
Cool.
So right now I work at the East Coast Music Awards, Lawnya, Vawnya, and Folk Fest. And then I take some contracts with a couple others as well.
That's awesome. It's a Lawnya Vawnya hat you've got on, right?
It is.
Nice swag, merch.
Yeah.
Thinking about each of those different hats, so like management, booking, festivals, is there like a key sort of piece of advice or like important thing you learned that could be valuable from the artist perspective under each of those categories?
I don't know. For me, it's never a complaint, but always the thing that jumps out, whether it's management or booking, is just expectations. If an artist is looking for a tour booking agent, normally like it's good to ask about all these different things, like whether, okay, are you just booking the tour, or are you going to be my main contact on the ground while I'm on tour? Are you going to do promo and marketing? Like, you know, so I've come into situations where some people think being a tour booker includes all of those things.
Right.
Which traditionally it doesn't. Traditionally, the tour booker legit just books the venue and then puts you in touch with the artists later down the road, you know? So it's kind of managing expectations from, you know, from a manager side. Also, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I answered that question well enough, but.
No, I mean, I think managing expectations is like, that's got to be a huge part of all of those jobs. It certainly is for me in management. And
managing your own expectations too, to some degree. Like, I feel like that's across all board in the industry, because I feel like we're in an industry where people have really like large visions and large ideas and large hopes and dreams. And, you know, you want all of that stuff to come true, whether it's at a festival point, management, booking, but you also have to manage those expectations and make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows who's doing what. Communication, I guess, is the biggest.
It's interesting. I don't know. I can't think of the attribution for this person I'm about to quote right now, but I read or I heard somewhere along the way, like you overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in a decade.
Yeah.
So finding ways to create manageable goals and actionable steps over the course of that, you know, those shorter time spans, aiming at the bigger things that hopefully you accomplish over those 5 to 10 year periods, but then doing it in a way that you can stick it out for 5 to 10 years. Cause you know, we've both already had periods of burnout. And so trying to help people through that too, who may have different habits or needs, mental health issues, all that sort of stuff. And then trying to be a healthy person yourself. It's tough.
It is tough. And I think this generation of musicians, artists, and industry is very different than, we'll say, in the 90s. Whereas we all wear multiple hats, even the artists wear multiple hats. So like back, you know, however many years ago, you just had a tour booker, you just had a manager, you just had a publicist, and the artist was just the artist for the most part, like when you got to a certain level. But now it's everyone doing different things all of the time. Yeah. And so I think managing expectations is really important, to set clear guidelines so that one person doesn't get more burnt out than the other. The artist still has time to create music. They're not doing too much of one thing, so yeah, that's, I guess, my biggest thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too. I think about how managing expectations is also tied to managing the workload.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, specifically with artists that you're managing, how do you delegate sort of between yourselves and your band members?
It's just good communication, really.
Right.
It's just like, there's times like when I'm busy with festivals, so I'll have to look at artists that I'm, in advance, not like at the time of, but I'll have a chat maybe a few months out with the artist that I'm managing or tour booking. And I'll be like, hey, I have this. If you want to reach me in this week, it's not going to happen. So
right.
Let's make sure we have all our ducks lined up. And I think that just comes down to good communication with whoever you're working with.
Yeah. That's been a thing I've had to get better at, is like being more careful about my language, especially in email, because I'm just like, reply, send, reply, send. And that for the first couple of years, I got away with it a little bit. And then people started approaching me, talking to me about needing to maybe friendly up my tone a little over email. And I get it, because I mean, I deal with hundreds of emails a day from lots of different people. And yeah, like tone doesn't convey well necessarily in email, especially if it's a short little message.
Unless, especially for the people that don't know you, like you're either called the cat's sorry.
That's great cameo. Catio.
Cameo, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like if the person doesn't know you, they don't know your tone. And I mean, I think we all need to kind of realize that tone doesn't convey well. So sometimes I'm really bad for taking offense over email.
Okay.
Getting a little defensive, like it's like really short and curt. I have to actually like kind of step away for like a hot second and then come back to it, because I'm like, no, this is email. They're not actually mad at me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then go with it. But so that's something I really need to work on. I get very defensive and upset sometimes for no reason.
Right.
But yeah, just conveying to someone that you don't know that like, hey, even just writing, hey, how's your day? Or hope you are well. Or, just also making it personal. I know it's hard when you're sending stuff out to so many festivals and so many, if you're looking for a manager, so many managers, but just taking the time to even just write, I hope you are doing well, or something like to personalize a little bit the email makes the biggest difference for me. Like,
yeah, I've been doing all that in all of my emails for the last 3 months. Like, I hope and because I mean it, it's like, I hope you're okay.
Yeah. Especially the past few months. It's like,
yeah,
you're doing well. I know you're in Toronto. I hope everything's okay.
Yeah. Speaking of Toronto, that's a great segue to another question I wanted to ask you. How do you think about, where you live, why you decided to base yourself in Newfoundland and Labrador, and have you ever felt the draw to bigger cities, or have you ever sort of based yourself in bigger cities while you've been doing this?
I'm trying to figure out where to start, because that's multiple questions.
Yeah, dive right in wherever.
Like, whew, all right. I guess I came to St. John's, so I'm not from here. I'm from Nova Scotia. And I came to St. John's to do music school. And it was kind of at one of the people I respected the most growing up, who taught me how to play saxophone and clarinet, was like, Paul Benza's the teacher, you need to go, like, he's the best, plus it's cheaper tuition too. He's like, go to MUN. And so I took his advice and came here. And from the moment I got off the plane, I knew it was special here. Like, I never felt, not like I didn't fit in, because that just seems juvenile in some ways, but I felt like I wasn't meant to be where I was. I didn't connect with where I was from ever. And I just felt when I got off the plane, it was just something about it. From the moment I stepped onto the MUN campus to the moment I started going downtown, like, I felt connected and appreciated, and just I really took to the city. So I stayed here and played in bands, and that's kind of how I started. And I always thought about moving to Montreal, but more just because Montreal is not for more opportunities, but because I like the city. Yeah. I tried it for 2 months, and then I came back. So that's how much I love it here. And I'm being here for a very long time. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I grew up in a military family. Dad was in the Air Forces for 20 years. Yeah. So when he retired from the military, we settled down in Steadybrook, just outside of Corner Brook, on the west coast of the island, for folks who don't know. And like nowhere else has ever felt like home for me. So I lived in Halifax for a decade, and I love Halifax. And I mean, it's maybe a bit of a stretch to call Halifax a big city. When you're thinking about, I think about Toronto, New York, Los Angeles, big music cities. But yeah, even that was too far away from home for me. And I've been wanting to come back here for years. I agree with you. And I think it's interesting. I find it more so in people who are from here that there comes a point that, like, if they're away, they have to come back. It's interesting to hear the perspective of someone who is not originally from here and who lands here and who like understands what is so special about it. But obviously that happens all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, it happens all the time. And also I think it's like, I won't go into detail, but it's also worth to note, like, a lot of my family moved from Nova Scotia. They're not, like, I have a couple aunts there. But there was a point where I kind of was like, okay, I need to make a home for myself now, because everyone's gone off in their different directions. And that was maybe in my 4th, 5th year, like, living here. And I had gone back to Halifax for 8 months to do the music business program there. And I was kind of just like in limbo in Halifax, missing St. John's desperately. And it was kind of like, it was 2013. I was like, okay, like, this is it. This is home now. And I moved back, and besides that 2-month stint in Montreal, Newfoundland's home. Like, I've created a home here. So
what did that decision, did that change things for you once you decided, like, this is home now? Did that help you to plant down roots in a way that maybe you hadn't prior?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. We could get really deep into this, but I don't know if that's like the point of the podcast. But I guess like
it's like, I mean, whatever you want to. It's I don't know. To me, the point of this is to like introduce people who might be in my circle to like industry professionals, mostly from Newfoundland. So like you do whatever you want to do.
Well, okay. So a little bit deeper, like, I lost my mother 7 years ago, and she was like kind of everything for me. She was the one that really pushed me to be in the music industry, who was always like, my dad was very supportive as well. But like, my mother was everything, and she really, really focused me into music and was like, go for it, just do it. And when I had that breakdown, we'll say, she was like the one there being like, no, you should still stay in it, still go for it. You're great. All the things, you want to hear when you're going through a breakout. Like, big breakdown. But when she kind of passed away, it was kind of one of those things where, like, I love my family desperately, but without her, just like, I needed to kind of put my own roots down. And I had always found I missed St. John's when I was back in those 8 months in Halifax. Like, and I just kind of like, it was kind of like this big explosion, I guess, in my life. And I just realized through all that it was here that I wanted to be. And it was kind of in that moment where I decided, okay, I'm coming, set down roots. I want to be in the industry. I still want to be in the industry. So
it's interesting. I think I have sort of a similar story, I guess, where a really tough moment in my life led to me transitioning into the music industry. Like, I was really struggling working as a lawyer at a firm in Halifax, and didn't like it. And
no way.
I woke up one morning, I thought I was having a heart attack, and I went to the hospital, did all the tests, and they told me it was probably just a panic attack or anxiety or whatever. But I decided that, like, I couldn't do that to my body for the sake of a job, even if I had trained all those years up for it, whatever. And that landed me, a month or two later, tour managing Ben Kaplan down through the United States, which got me to the ECMAs in St. John's in 2015, which is how I got rolling.
Also, just for the record, my first job in the industry, so not as a musician, but as an industry professional, was with Ben as his merch girl. So that's hilarious.
That's funny. That's funny point of connection. I knew you had worked with Ben.
Can we tag him in this post?
We're going to have to. I haven't talked to him in a while. I hope he'll be okay with it. But I think those moments of like struggle lead you or at least guide you to the path that you're supposed to be on. Sorry to hear about your mom. That I can only imagine that would have been really tough. then and now, you know what I mean?
But it definitely, like, I think everything, everything that I was and that I am now wouldn't, like, honestly, I owe so much to her, from
Yeah.
anything from my drive, how I work with people, and just to where I am now because of what happened is definitely, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really, I mean, that's really nice. And to be doing the thing that she encouraged you toward, and like to be at the level that you're at with it. I mean, to be working with NL Folk Festival and Lawnya, Vawnya and the ECMAs, it's like, are there 3 bigger and cooler events in Atlantic Canada? I'm not sure. It's hard. Do you see it that way for yourself though? I know, like for me, I find it hard to look at where I'm at and maybe appreciate where I've gotten and the things that I have accomplished, because I'm always aspiring to more. Do you have that same struggle?
It's funny, because if you had asked me this yesterday, I probably would have said, I don't see where I've come from at all, like in a negative way, and see where I am today. But everyone was posting the Save the Arts hashtag of post a photo of like you in the industry. So I ended up going through all these old photos.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, like back from 2010 up until now, 2009 and 8 in university and playing in bands, and then into the industry. And it was just wild.
Yeah.
Like it kind of blew my mind of things I'd forgotten about, like ECMAs in 2010 in Moncton, and just
Right.
like, so it was, I think if you had to ask me yesterday, I honestly would have had a completely different answer for you. And
Right.
I read questions yesterday, but it was really like insane for me and mind-blowing to actually go through all those photos and see, like, from playing in bands in 2008, 2009 here.
Yeah.
And then, going and doing music business. It was interesting.
That's funny. I did have a similar moment recently. My wife and I just moved into our new place.
Okay.
And I've got a box somewhere full of all the like lanyards that I've saved over the years. And just looking at them like, oh my God, how many events have I been to in cities and different countries now because of this? Yeah. It's wild. And the government's paid for it. So thanks, Factor and Music Nova Scotia and Music NL. My.
And now that I've been in Newfoundland for so long, I kind of forget that there was 8 to 12 months in Nova Scotia, and I have all of these lanyards and photos from Nova Scotia Music Week in like Yarmouth and
right.
It's just like, ooh, like those were fun times.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about like other specific questions I wanted to get into with you.
Sorry, I ramble.
No, it's okay. I mean, I'm happy for this to be more freestyle, but thinking about all of this and kind of related to what we were just talking about, like, how do you think about success for yourself as an industry professional, and then maybe for your artists too? Flipping back to managing expectations, how do you help them define success for themselves?
To be honest, I've never defined success with my artists necessarily, like, again, managing expectations, but it's kind of what they want, just like it is. And it changes, right? Like my definition of success when I was in my early 20s would not even remotely be my definition of success now. It's kind of just, I'm trying to formulate the words for this. That's a really, like, for me, that's an intense question, because it does change, and it's just, but it comes down to being able to pay my bills. Like, pay my bills, work at something that I want. Like, not that I want to turn down work, but to be able to pick the work that I want that means the most to me. Wow, that is a really tough question. I think about it a lot, what defines success. And honestly, like, as I think being able to live my life outside of the industry, like going hiking is really important to me. Like, the thing, playing clarinet is really important to me. My friends and the family that I've built here are really important to me. So, like, success for me is being able to work in my industry, still pay my bills, but to be able to not neglect the other things that are important to me. Because I think that's one thing, and that comes with, a bit of the mental health discussion that we've talked about, and managing expectations, is that this industry can really get away from you, and in the sense that you say yes to everything and it becomes all consuming, and then you burn out, or you don't see your friends, or you don't see or don't do anything else that's important to you, and then you're 4 years down the road and you're like, I haven't picked up my clarinet in 4 years, which happened to me. Or like, I haven't seen trees, like really like in the woods. Like for me, I like to be in the woods, like
Yeah.
no other sounds besides wind going through the trees or the ocean. And it's like, I haven't heard that sound in a year. Like, I don't want to get to that point again. So for me, like success, like, and whether that does take another job or outside the industry, but for me, as long as I can work in some capacity of the industry while still being stable and being able to explore the other areas that I'm interested in, baking, love baking. That's another.
I've seen that on your Insta lately. Yeah.
I'm a really, like, I think that was like a whole career I could have also done if I didn't go the music direction. So, yeah, so being able to do all those things is really important, and it makes me, I think, who I am. And if my work gets outside of that, then I haven't managed my expectations well, and that's not success. Like, I don't want to be in Toronto. I don't want to be working, 60 hours a week like a lot of managers do, and that's great. Like that's their version of success. That's not mine. I want to be able to go hiking and bake and play clarinet and do a whole bunch of other stuff besides the music industry, which is also important.
Yeah.
That's a long-winded answer, and it's I don't know, it's hard to describe, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's so much to it, right? And I think what you're describing is like trying to live a well-rounded life.
Yes, balanced life. That's the biggest thing of success for me. And obviously that means some days, you're working more than others, or, you have to pull a couple intense weeks, but something that rounds out. And that's really important for me.
Yeah, I've been making more time, like just in the last week or two, to play guitar again, because I realized I haven't like picked up the guitar for more than a minute or two in like probably a year or two.
Yeah.
Which is a long time. Like that was, it was a really important part of my childhood and my young adulthood. And I think a big reason that I'm working in the music business is because I grew up playing in bands, and trying to reconnect with that and make space for that again. And I'm the same way with the woods. Like that's one of the reasons I wanted to move home, is like the steady brook is just right there. So I go have my coffee by the brook in the morning, and like most days I'll go hike up Marble Mountain, like not all the way up, but like halfway, and come back down. And I missed that when I was in Halifax and when I've been away.
Yeah. Halifax has some great views. I feel like
for sure.
I maybe like negatively portrayed Halifax, because I love Halifax for a lot of things, but it's like I live right next to Signal Hill.
Yeah.
And so just being able to walk out my door and 5 minutes I'm to Signal Hill, or 10 minutes I'm to the Sugarloaf Trail, which goes all the way up to Logie Bay. Like, it's just, I like being that close to nature. Like if you're in Halifax proper, you do have to drive, not a significant drive compared to Toronto or Montreal, but you still have to drive to be in the middle of nowhere. And I like that I can walk and be in the middle of nowhere. So.
It's like the opposite of working in the music business, being alone in the middle of nowhere.
That's kind of like a life goal, I'm not going to lie. Like that's kind of when I retire, I want a cabin in the middle of nowhere. So with my house and my baked goods. Yeah.
Before I started on to all this, I was thinking maybe I'd just build like a tiny house in the woods somewhere and retire on my little bit of savings I had at the time.
I don't know if we'll ever actually get to retire though. Like realistically, it's like, I don't know.
That's kind of fine for me. Like I do really enjoy working.
So do I. Yeah.
And like that's the other part about working in the music business, is like the freedom that comes with it.
Yeah.
And maybe that, I guess that I'm sure that's not true of people who work for bigger companies or agencies or whatever, but like being a one-person company, I can get up and do, I can go for my hike in the morning before I start, and then I might work till 8 o'clock to make up for it. But like, I can do that.
Yeah. Self-employment has its ups and downs. And I've had this conversation with friends that work in with companies that are like 9 to 5. Even with the job I have now, it's kind of 9 to 5. It's funny. I feel like I'm the best of both worlds. Like I need some sort of like structure in life to be able to do the non-structured or whatever. But it's interesting. I think it takes a certain kind of person to be fully self-employed. Like you obviously have to have like some sort of, no, I have to get up, I have to get this done,
Yeah.
you know, and but it's nice to have that freedom, and I've always really enjoyed, because I'm not good at just sitting down at a desk. Like I had a desk job for a couple years, working for a venue, which was really great, but it was like I was chained to that desk. I couldn't go and do anything else. I had to be there.
Yeah.
I was like, well, there's no emails coming in, there's nothing for me to do, so I'm just sitting on Facebook doing nothing. I could be doing so many other things, you know, whether it's something as silly as laundry, I could be making my day much more productive. And so I've always enjoyed being self-employed, because it's like, okay, I hammer through all these emails. Okay, I'm going to go do the dishes. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go and then come back and do the dishes and do more emails if they've come in, you know?
Yeah, I've gotten really good at being on the phone and like selectively muting so that I can like throw the laundry in or like take the dishes out of the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Oh man,
you are a good husband. Your wife must love you.
I think she does. Yeah, I'm like,
I hope she does.
I don't want to brag, but like I'm great around the house. But she's the one bringing home the bacon, so I'm making up for it.
That's what I need to find.
Oh my!
Bring home the bacon.
Yeah. Well, Mary Beth, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I've got two more questions. One's a serious one and one's a fun one to end it off.
Okay.
Okay, so the serious one is, well, I'll ask it two ways. What do you think we're doing well in Newfoundland and Labrador in the music business, if anything? And what do you think we could be doing better, if anything, to strengthen the music industry and the people working in it?
I think obviously we have so many artists and we have so much talent here, and I think that's really great. And I think Arts NL and Music NL, you know, they're both going through transitions, but I think for the most part, for how small those organizations are and for the funding that we get, like I think they're doing a great job at trying to get our artists out there and heard. But for me, my always big thing is that there's nothing really improving our industry. So for the insane amount of artists that Newfoundland has, there is a very, very small industry. There's only like 4 or 5 serious real artists in the or managers in the province. There's no booking agents on record being in the province. There's people that do it for their friends or me that does it on the down low, but there's no one like, I am a booking agent from Newfoundland. Yeah, that's not really here. There's no, I think there's some like more underground record labels, but there's no big ones here. And I mean, part of that is we are a small city, but I think in order to really help the artists that we have, especially because a lot of artists are really getting recognized, like they're going overseas, they're going to the States. You look at Mark Bragg just did a full tour. Yeah. Our artists are winning awards left, right, and center. Rum Ragged's always going away. Yeah, like I would have to get a list out because there's so many amazing artists doing really amazing things. Sherry Ryan, the list goes on and on and on. But I feel like we don't really have a big enough industry or more people really supporting these artists. So unfortunately, a lot of artists, I feel like they have to move away because there's nothing really here to help them and support them. So I feel like as a province, if we can help build up our industry professionals, even if that's just giving a bit more funding for, the managers that we do have or the, tour bookers that don't say that they're tour bookers, to go get a bit more professional development or to go away. Because the other thing is like there's, Arts NL doesn't fund really self-employed managers or tour bookers. Music NL only gives professional development up to a certain amount. Like it's kind of hard as a starting out if you don't already have a company or something to fall back on to really be like, I'm going to make it here and I'm going to be a manager, because you're shelling out money to go to all of these events to promote your artists. And anyways, this is a much larger discussion, but I feel like if the province was to build up the industry a bit better, then and put more support and more funding into the industry, it would really help the artists that are here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about my own situation where I had built the company up that I owned for 3 or 4 years before moving home. And I was in a position then where I have comprehensive music company funding through Factor. So I've got a minimum amount of business travel funding every year that I can access, right?
Which is amazing because, like, you know, yeah, you need to be a registered business for what, 2 years before Factor or Canada Council will actually fund you, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's 2 or 3 depending.
Yeah, and it's just, I feel like I understand why, but it's also like that's the time when a beginning manager needs the money the most, I guess, because they're not established. And it's just, so that's actually going back to one of your like earlier questions. It's one of the main reasons why I've never really been in the industry full time. Like, you know, I have student debt, I have bills to pay, you know, it's just, for me, I find to be a manager full time just kind of seems financially not possible, at least not in this point in my career. Maybe later on, once I've paid off that student debt and done all that stuff, but I find there's not enough support for me to be able to be like, okay, because you need to do a lot of traveling. Like, if you want to be a successful manager, you need to be at these conferences. Like, you need to be making
year round,
not just in the Atlantic provinces, but in Ontario, in, you know, overseas or in the States, depending on where your artist wants to focus on.
Yeah.
You know, so it's for me, not, you know, personally, I'm not speaking on the rest of the industry, but I find if there was more support for the industry, you know, I feel like that could really benefit the artists in Newfoundland and Labrador, because more people would be able to seek professional development or go study or be able to attend these conferences to better help artists.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting little conundrum, isn't it? Where it's like, I understand from the music industry organization and the government point of view that they want to fund established companies. Yeah. But how do I become an established company if I can't afford to do the things that I need to do to get there? It's like, I had a day job for the first 2 or 3 years too. I was a notary public in Halifax, and like I just did that a couple hours a day, and that's how I made the money that I lived on. And then anything that came in from management, I was just like saving in the company and reinvesting into projects. And I was lucky to be able to build it that way, but it's tough. And I don't know if I could do it from scratch, starting over where I am now. Yeah. Anyway, so last question. Since we're in the era of unlimited Zoom chats and seminars, if you could have a 1-hour Zoom call with any living artist, creator, musician, who would it be and why?
I thought about this a lot because for those of you that don't know, Nigel sent me the questions in advance.
I did.
I'm really glad he did, because there's so, like, obviously, you know, there's so many favorite artists or like people that you respect in the industry. And honestly, it would be Patti Smith, hands down. I would kill to have a 1-hour conversation with Patti Smith. She's one of my favorite writers, poets, performers. She plays clarinet. Like, the girl is just all rounded amazing. I don't know if anyone checked out or follows her on Instagram, but her and her daughter Jessie were doing all of these live poetry readings and performances on Instagram Live, and it was really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mary Beth. I really appreciate it. Nice to get to chat and to learn new things about each other and points of connection we didn't know existed. And before we sign off, I'll thank Music NL, ACOA, and the province of Newfoundland and Labrador for sponsoring these chats. And Mary Beth, hopefully I'll see you around sometime soon.
Yeah, let me know if you're in the city, not Cornwall, but this side, Avalon City. Yeah.
I will be for sure. The Bison Reuben Raker out there, and my Aunt Linda's out there, and my sister-in-law Amy. So I gotta come out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.